We, of course, are continuing to follow major developing news tonight. The United States going into another country to remove its leader from power.
Troops captured Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro and his wife. Tonight, they've been brought to New York, where they now face federal charges. This comes after an early morning military operation in Caracas. Satellite footage from NASA showed major heat signatures at a military base following several explosions. Footage from Venezuela shows the aftermath of those attacks. No U.S. service members were reported killed during the operation.
News 4 was the only local station streaming the moments Maduro landed in New York. Federal agents brought the Venezuelan president off the plane around 4 o'clock this afternoon, our time. President Trump posting a photo on social media of Maduro in custody. You see it there. He's expected to make a court appearance as soon as Monday. Chris Pallone begins our team coverage tonight with the latest developments.
Tonight, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro is in New York in federal custody hours after a surprise early morning U.S. military raid on his compound in Caracas.
Late last night and early today, at my direction, the United States Armed Forces conducted an extraordinary military operation in the capital of Venezuela.
The Pentagon says President Trump gave the order to arrest Maduro just before 11 Friday night. Troops from 20 military bases and 150 U.S. aircraft took part in the mission, which saw an elite strike force arrive at Maduro's compound around 1 this morning.
This mission was meticulously planned, drawing lessons from decades of missions over the last many years.
The president says with Maduro deposed, the U.S. will run Venezuela indefinitely.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition.
Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves.
We're going to be taking out a tremendous amount of wealth out of the ground, and that wealth is going to the people of Venezuela and people from outside of Venezuela that used to be in Venezuela. And it goes also to the United States of America in the form of reimbursement for the damages caused us by that country.
Venezuelans around the world taking to the streets to celebrate the end of Maduro's reign.
Everybody's just happy because everybody has been waiting for democracy and change in Venezuela.
But on Capitol Hill, congressional Democrats and some Republicans are demanding answers from the Trump administration about why they were kept in the dark. Many calling the military mission illegal.
Now they're saying they were going to occupy a foreign country, we're going to run it from the United States, and that we're going to steal their oil. In what world did this administration get any of that permission ever for them to do that?
Secretary of State Marco Rubio said briefing Congress before the attack would have jeopardized the mission to get Maduro. Chris Pallone, NBC News.
There were supporters of Maduro in the streets of Venezuela in protest today. They demand for the return of their president, many carrying action figures of him and some burning American flags.
Back here stateside, many in the country's largest Venezuelan community celebrating tonight. In the Miami community of Doral, people took to the streets there. They are hoping this is a first step to a free and democratic Venezuela.
As a Venezuelan American, I can't tell you how happy I am. There's tears in my eyes. We've been waiting for this moment since 1998.
And Venezuelan nationals in San Antonio are also celebrating tonight, but others here in Military City are protesting.
And dozens taking to the streets on the north side, questioning whether the president can legally act alone.
As our team coverage continues, News 4 San Antonio's Joy Bergen is live in the Content Center looking into that question.
But first, to News 4 San Antonio's Phil Sterling, who's live on the north side with people protesting and celebrating the military moves. Phil, good evening.
Now, Jonathan, Mandy, the protest happened here at 4 p.m. where protesters were walking around this intersection of San Pedro Avenue and Bassi Road. Some of those protesters say that Maduro's capture could bring us into an unnecessary war, while other Venezuelan nationals that I spoke to said this is the first step in their country's path to freedom. Protesters gather to stand against airstrikes in Venezuela and U.S. military action to capture Nicolás Maduro.
I'm here today to protest against U.S. imperialism and U.S. intervention in Latin America.
The Party for Socialism and Liberation San Antonio held the public protest, its members wearing red shirts.
Tell you little bits and pieces and make things so abstract to be good and evil.
Speakers say they believe this action is to take Venezuela's oil. They question question the legality of Trump capturing the president of a foreign country.
All the illegal actions he's already taken against Americans himself, I wouldn't be surprised, and I wasn't surprised when he did it against non-Americans as well.
A few miles away from the protests, a very different view.
I think that's the word for today. Justice.
Venezuelan national Morelis Diaz, who owns Zulia's, says Maduro's authoritarian rule was terrible for the country.
Drug trafficking, murder, and prosecution to all the people. No, we have thousands of political prisoners.
Trump says the U.S. will now run the country temporarily.
I think in this transition is going to have some time.
But protesters say instead of spending money on reforming foreign countries' governments, we need to spend money on our own future.
I would like to see my money go to my public schools, to free fare, to raising the minimum wage.
Now, both sides say that they're watching what's going on in Venezuela carefully, but protesters say if there's any more escalation in the country, we may see more of them. Phil Sterling reporting live from the north side, News 4 San Antonio.
Phil, thank you for that, sir. Meantime, San Antonio Mayor Gina Ortiz Jones releasing a statement within just the last hour on the Venezuela operation. Mayor Jones, an Iraqi war veteran, says in part that she is aware the military city community will answer when duty calls. She also says she believes poorly conceived military campaigns can needlessly place Americans in danger. She ends her statement with the hope that President Trump and those advising him have thought through the consequences of these monumental actions. Those traveling around the Caribbean had to deal with major flight delays and even cancellations. Those delays and cancellations stretching from Miami to Puerto Rico all the way to St. Lucia. The airspace closed due to U.S. officials flying President Maduro and his wife out of Venezuela. The FAA classified the closure as a potentially hazardous situation in ongoing military activity.
The Venezuela operation is being described by President Trump as a modernized version of the Monroe Doctrine that was aimed to oppose any European interference in the Western Hemisphere back in 1823. It was used to justify U.S. military interventions in Latin America. One area attorney says the administration used that doctrine, saying Maduro's regime wasn't just a distant problem.
Nicolás Maduro was acting very closely with foreign malign influences, both from Russia and China. With the exception of Cuba, China is the largest taker of oil from Venezuela. And so for him to be involved in all of the illegal and illicit activity that he is, and to be under indictment from the United States.
Trey Traynor served on the Federal Election Commission for several years. He says he hopes free and fair elections in Venezuela will help further establish democracy in the country. The events in Venezuela could have ripple effects far beyond South America.
Yeah, the decision could impact how the U.S. military moves forward and even the economy right here in Texas. Let's go to News 4 San Antonio's Joy Bergen, who's live in the Content Center. She has insight from a political expert on what could come next. Joy.
Yeah, a lot of potential impacts here and a lot of reaction pouring in from around the world tonight. Now, one of the biggest questions is whether President Trump's actions were legal without approval from Congress. Political science professor John Taylor of UTSA says President Trump would not be the first president to take initial action without first consulting Congress in order to keep military plans from reaching its targets.
But there's something to be said for consulting Congress in what you're going to do in day one after you've done this, when you've tried to affect regime change. Where are we going forward with this, and how are we going forward? Who's in charge? Trump says that he's in charge, or the U.S. is in charge. Okay, then who exactly is that person that's going to be named? How are they going to work with the Venezuelan government?
The president will also have to justify to Congress why he felt this was needed.
President Trump talked at length about oil and talked at length about wealth and resources. He didn't mention much about democracy, restoring Venezuelan democracy.
Now, Taylor says the acquisition of this oil will impact Texas directly.
Price of oil is already below what we would want for the state of Texas when it comes to our revenues. Now, all of a sudden, if we're getting cheap Venezuelan oil, instead of West Texas Intermediate being at roughly $58 a barrel, it drops to $38 a barrel. That's not good news for the state of Texas financially.
Taylor also drew parallels to the 1989 invasion of Panama, dubbed Operation Just Cause, in which the U.S. removed military leader Manuel Noriega and ultimately convicted him of trafficking cocaine into the U.S. Now, this is similar to what's been outlined in the indictment against Maduro, accusing him of partnering with drug traffickers and narco-terrorist organizations. But Taylor says this differs in that the U.S. at that time already had a much larger presence in Panama than it currently has in Venezuela, and that could make the next steps more complicated.
In the case of Panama, as in the case of Venezuela, you don't know what's going to happen in the sense of what the political structure will be, what the reaction will be. And so I worry that we may be in a situation where we may destabilize Venezuela because of the potential for political conflict.
So what's next? While that's still unclear, Taylor believes it will mean U.S. military forces being deployed to Venezuela.
If you're going to engage in essentially what is regime change and try to affect a regime change, you're going to have a lot more boots on the ground, as it were.
Now, the president has not given official word on that front, but did say in a press conference today that he is, quote, not afraid of putting boots on the ground. Reporting from the Content Center, I'm Joy Bergen, News 4 San Antonio.
The president has long threatened the possibility of military strikes on Venezuelan territory. According to announcements from the administration, 35 known strikes against alleged drug smuggling boats have killed at least 115 people since early September. Preparations started even before then. On August 19th, the U.S. military deployed 3 guided missile destroyers to the waters off Venezuela. On September 2nd, the U.S. carried out its first strike against an alleged drug-carrying vessel. By mid-November, the administration said the total number of troops in the region was around 12,000 on nearly a dozen Navy ships.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth named the administration's efforts Operation Southern Spear on New Year's Day. That's just 2 days ago. Maduro said on state television that Venezuela was open to negotiating an agreement with the United States to combat drug trafficking. Be sure to keep it right here on News 4 San Antonio for our continuing coverage of the capture of Venezuela's president. Our network of reporters and the resources of multiple news agencies are hard at work. We will continue to have all of the major developments in the coming days.